In a small village in southern Nigeria, nestled between lush forests and expansive farmland, there flowed a river named Ọfọnna. The river was vast, mysterious, and revered. It was the village's lifeline, providing water for drinking, farming, and fishing. However, the villagers knew better than to treat it casually. They feared Ọfọnna as much as they respected it. Stories were passed down from elders to children about the river's temper. It was said that Ọfọnna had a soul of its own, ancient and vengeful. If disrespected, it would rise and destroy all in its path. Crops would fail, animals would drown, and the villagers would suffer. To appease the river, rituals were held every year, and when misfortune struck, sacrifices were made. It wasn't always livestock or crops that were offered to Ọfọnna. There were times when the river demanded more, a human child. Such children were believed to be marked by the river itself, born under ominous circumstances and chosen by fate to be offered. Once dedicated, these children were raised as outsiders, forbidden to marry, mingle, or even touch others. They belonged only to the river. One fateful night, a violent storm descended upon the village. The sky was a canvas of lightning, and thunder rolled like a drumbeat of doom. In a small hut on the outskirts of the village, a young woman named Adan labored to bring a child into the world. Her cries of pain echoed through the night, but no midwife dared come to her aid. The villagers feared the storm was a sign of the gods' displeasure, and many suspected the child she carried was cursed. Adan's husband, Nkem, stood helpless by her side, praying for her survival. When the child was finally born, the rain suddenly stopped. The air grew malevolently still. But joy was short-lived. Adan's breath slowed, and her eyes glazed over. She died moments later, her body cold beside her newborn. Overcome with grief, Nkem collapsed and died before anyone could reach him. The midwives finally arrived to find the baby wailing in the silence of the night, her tiny fists clenched as if defying the world that had abandoned her. The villagers gathered outside the hut, their faces pale with fear. "This is no ordinary child," one elder murmured. "She is born of death and destruction. The river has claimed her." The village elders decided that the baby would be dedicated to Ọfọnna. Early the following morning, they performed the ritual. The infant, wrapped in white cloth, was placed in a basket and set afloat on the river's surface. To everyone's astonishment, the waters, turbulent just hours before, grew calm as the basket floated downstream. The priest declared the child accepted by the river. "Her name shall be Ifeoma," he said, his voice echoing over the water. "She is a blessing to Ọfọnna, though a curse to us." From that moment, Ifeoma's fate was sealed. She was raised by the priests who lived near the riverbank, isolated from the rest of the village. The villagers avoided her, crossing the road if they saw her coming. Mothers told their children frightening tales about the river girl, warning them never to go near her. But Ifeoma, unaware of her curse, grew up curious and innocent. She loved the river, spending hours watching the sunlight dance on its surface. She often spoke to it as if it were a living being, sharing her dreams and fears. "I wish they didn't hate me," she whispered one evening, dipping her feet into the cool water. "I wish I could be like them." The river seemed to respond, its gentle ripples comforting her. But it also carried a silent truth: she was not like them. She never would be. As Ifeoma grew older, her isolation deepened. She watched from afar as the village children played games and celebrated festivals. She longed to join them, but every time she approached, their laughter turned to screams. At 15, she tried to visit the market. She hoped to buy a beaded necklace she had seen from a distance. But as she stepped into the bustling square, The crowd fell silent. Whispers spread like wildfire. Why is she here? She'll bring bad luck. Get her out. Before she could say a word, someone threw a stone at her. Others followed, hurling insults and rocks until she fled back to the riverbank, her heart heavy with despair. The priest tried to comfort her, but his words felt dry. You are special, Ifeoma, he said. The river chose you for a reason. Why? She demanded. Why did it choose me to suffer? The priest had no answer. One evening, during the annual harvest festival, Ifeoma made a daring decision. She would attend the celebration, even if it meant hiding in the shadows. She wanted to see what happiness looked like up close. She crept to the village square, hiding behind a tree as she watched the villagers dance and feast. But as she watched, something strange began to happen. The river, calm and steady moments before, started to rise. Without warning, a surge of water swept into the square, overturning tables and drenching the dancers. Panic erupted as villagers scrambled to save their food and belongings. It's her! Someone shouted, pointing at Ifeoma. She brought the flood. Before she could escape, a mob formed, chasing her back to the riverbank. They hurled accusations and threats, their fear turning into fury. Enough! Ifeoma screamed, her voice carrying over the chaos. I didn't do this. But as the river swelled behind her, even she began to doubt her innocence. From that day on, misfortunes plagued the village. Crops withered despite the rains. Livestock fell ill and died. The river, once a source of life, became a source of destruction, flooding fields and washing away homes. The villagers blamed Ifeoma for every calamity. They called her the floating curse, claiming her connection to the river had doomed them all. For Ifeoma, the guilt was unbearable. She retreated deeper into solitude, spending her days by the river's edge. She began hearing whispers in the water, faint and haunting. They hate you, the river said. But you are mine. You belong to me. What do you want from me? She cried, her voice trembling. To make them suffer, the river replied. When Ifeoma turned 18, the villagers reached their breaking point. They decided to kill her, believing it was the only way to break the curse. At dawn, they stormed the riverbank, armed with machetes and torches. But as they approached her hut, the river rose violently, its waves crashing against the shore. Ifeoma stepped out to face them, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. You think killing me will save you, she said, her voice eerily calm. You brought this upon yourselves. She raised her arms, and the river answered. A massive wave swept through the village, destroying everything in its path. Huts crumbled, and fields turned to swamps. The villagers fled, their cries drowned by the roar of the water. Haunted by the destruction she had caused, Ifeoma grew tired of her life as the floating curse. She longed for peace, for herself and the village. One night, an old woman appeared at her hut. You can end this, the woman said. But it will cost you everything. Ifeoma listened quietly as the woman explained the ritual of severance. To break her bond with the river, she would have to offer her life to it. At dawn, Ifeoma walked into the river, her white dress glowing in the morning light. The villagers watched in silence, their anger replaced by sorrow. As she disappeared beneath the surface, the waters calmed, and the sun broke through the clouds. She had given her life to the village and the villagers. For the first time in years, peace returned to the village. But on quiet nights, when the moonlight kissed the river's surface, some swore they could see Ifeoma's spirit floating on the wild waters, her face looking peaceful, finally free. Here are 3 moral lessons from this video. 1. The power of selfless sacrifice. Ifeoma's story shows that sometimes, the greatest love is found in giving up everything for the good of others. Her sacrifice to calm the river reminds us that true peace often comes when we think beyond ourselves and act for the well-being of the world around us. 2. The consequences of fear and misjudgment. The villagers' fear of Ifeoma led them to blame her for problems she didn't cause. This teaches us that fear and quick judgment can hurt innocent people and create more problems. By understanding others instead of judging, we can build stronger, kinder communities. 3. Finding strength in adversity. Even though Ifeoma was treated unfairly and faced many struggles, she found the courage to confront her fate. Her journey reminds us that, no matter how hard life feels, facing our problems with bravery can lead to freedom, growth, and lasting peace. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Have a great day.